We're just waiting for the live streaming. Sorry about this. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Julia Simpson, President and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, representing the private sector from around the world in travel and tourism. I am really delighted you have joined us at COP15. We're joined today by Zorica Urošević, Executive Director at the UNWTO and Special Representative to the United Nations in Geneva. And of course, our lovely Glenn Manjuk, CEO of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. And to my right, I'd like to welcome Daniel Turner, who leads Ani Mundial, who has co-authored one of the significant reports that I'll talk about in a minute. So travel and tourism, well, travel and nature are intrinsically linked. Once someone said it's the economy, stupid. Well, actually, it's nature, stupid. Just think for a minute how much tourism activity comes from safaris, rainforest treks, coral reef snorkeling. Wildlife tourism alone creates over 340 billion US dollars a day and supports more than 21 million jobs, often in those communities that we are looking to protect and those communities that know how best to protect our biodiversity. But like many industries, travel and tourism, our sector can also be a threat, and we can contribute to biodiversity loss. We know that as a society, we continue to consume far more than the earth can provide for us, and we need to grasp the scale of the problem. We are talking about the demise of nature, the lifeline for our prosperity, well-being, and our sector survival. We cannot wait for others to take the lead. Tourism needs nature, and we believe nature needs tourism too. No other sector puts an economic value on biodiversity like ours. That's why we're all here today, and I'm delighted to announce this powerful new alliance. Together, WTTC, the UNWTO, who I am so grateful for their support in opening the doors here today so that the private sector can be here, and the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance are bringing together the public and private sectors in a shared vision. We envision the global travel and tourism sector supporting and inspiring governments, businesses, and society to implement the post-2020 global biodiversity framework and help to transform our relationship with the natural world. We want to see the sector focusing on halting and reversing biodiversity loss by 2030. Over the past 2 years, alongside with our partners, UNWTO, UNEP, SHA, UNFCCC, and the Convention on Biological Diversity, WTTC has produced 2 defining reports addressing the twin challenges of climate change and biodiversity loss, which I have to say, and Daniel has reminded me, these are inextricably linked. They are one and the same thing. For COP26 in Glasgow, we produced the first ever sector-wide net zero roadmap for travel and tourism. This blueprint puts us on track for net zero by 2050 and ensures we play our part in keeping warming below 1.5 degrees. In September, during New York Climate Week, we launched with Daniel our Nature Positive Travel and Tourism Guidance. This guidance, it's not just a piece of paper, it is a framework for travel and tourism businesses, and it provides a toolkit so that on the ground they know what they need to be working on. It's an absolute, and this today, landmark consensus bringing together business, policymakers, climate scientists, and biodiversity experts. Just last month in Riyadh, we launched the new environmental and social research from WTTC. This is really, really world-breaking, and if you haven't heard about it, please go on our website, and it supports the work that the UNWTO are doing in their framework. What it is no one has actually been able to count or quantify our impact in terms of greenhouse gases, impact in terms of energy, water, impact on communities. and measure it. For the first time, globally, travel and tourism has now done that. We have a benchmark back to 2010 and 2019. We will announce figures yearly, and we can give you numbers on individual countries at the beginning of next year. It's significant because if you can't count it, you can't control it. So it includes, as I said, greenhouse gases over 185 countries, and it's been a long journey culminating in Montreal here at COP15. So our message today is simple. WTTC, that's the private sector, UNWTO, the public sector, SHA, one of the most important moving organisations in sustainability, are forming an alliance of travel and tourism partners to meet the objectives of the 2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. We will work with our membership at the WTTC and, in fact, the whole private sector to understand their obligations, our obligations, to adopt the right safeguards. I would believe that tourism is not just a critical sector, but it is the critical sector to bring this ambition to life. We have the potential, us and our customers, to be the guardians of nature. No other industry has the economic and commercial imperative to change the way we do. But when we launched our nature positive agenda earlier this year, we had a realization. What was abundantly clear was that although travel companies are aware of their great need and potential to protect nature, there is a huge lack of guidance and support to help them to do so. So today we're taking the next step on this journey and launching our new project, our Vision for Nature Positive Travel and Tourism, and 130 organisations have already signed up. I think I'm going to pause there actually and let others say a few words, and some of my other comments I'll bring in during the questions. Thank you very much. Can I now please introduce Zaritza?
Thank you very much, Julia. The World Tourism Organization, yes, is really having the seat at the table at this COP15 conference because we are one of the agencies negotiating the biological framework. And of course, as tourism is a very important trade and services sector, the private sector has definitely the lead in engaging and making scalable action. So tourism represents 10% of the world GDP in 2019, and more than 40% of the world's economy can be directly or indirectly linked to the use of biological resources. Being the third world export earning category after fuels and chemicals, again in 2019, according to the World Trade Organization, tourism represents 40% as well of the blue economy, according to UNCTAD, ahead of fisheries and maritime transport. And we know that tourism transport represents 8% of world carbon emissions. And there, let me just disagree, we do measure carbon emissions. We did publish a very important report with the OECD Transport Forum in 2019 at the COP26, I think. The pandemic disruption has caused a massive loss of tourism jobs, impacting societies, economies, and the planet and its biological resources. We all have seen our blue planet when tourism ceased in 2020. If you remember all on the screens, there was no pollution anymore. There was just a beautiful blue planet. So it is clear that while tourism resumes with already plus 62% of recovery in 2022, we need to rethink the way we travel, the way we do business, and the way policies and governance of the sectors unfold. And exactly what you said, Julia. This is essential to enable and unlock the desire and the need of the private sector to have scalable actions. This was already stated at the CBD COP13 in the Cancun Declaration on Mainstreaming and Decision 33, with the support of UNWTO, where tourism was recognized as a positive agent for change. And in other documents, I can say UN processes, including Rio Plus 20. UNWTO is there to catalyze and scale up change for the good of the planet, people, inviting all actors to join. This is why this initiative is so important for us. There is no sector like tourism for nature. Tourism brings value and plays a key role in protecting culture, biodiversity, ecosystems, livelihoods of millions of people. When we reviewed national tourism policies, actually 80 of them, we found that 65% of policy referenced the term biodiversity as a value for tourism once, and that 51% do so in the context of nature, being a visitor attraction, reinforcing the message that tourism brings value when we review national tourism policies. So we already have started a catalytic role and work with the One Planet program. You mentioned earlier the Glasgow Declaration for Climate Action, which was launched at COP26. And WTTC is a key I think one of the first signatory, if I remember. So we can show the commitment. The Global Plastic Initiative as well, with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and UNEP, to preserve biodiversity of land and oceans as well, because oceans are the ones absorbing an incredible percentage of our emissions. And now we are as well looking at reducing food waste through responsible management of food ecosystems. And actually, in parallel of today, we are having today a global forum on gastronomy in Nara, where this flagship initiative is going to be introduced. We are advancing on reliable data and measurement frameworks, such as measuring sustainable tourism, which is a UN statistical framework combination with measuring sustainability in tourism. And as well, we have initiatives such as INSTO networks, which are tourism observatories, which UNWTO is coordinating. While we are talking, negotiations are today on the way to embed the sector's importance, not to be a monster that eats biodiversity, but a force for good which supports conservation. And this is happening in one of the rooms, I think even on that floor. So we will be giving some insight later today together with concrete business cases of how businesses are taking action to integrate biodiversity into decision-making and how policies can help accelerate the change, not only for conservation, but for regeneration. The session will feature compelling examples of shifts in business and practices that are innovative, transformative, measurable, scalable, inclusive, and critical in reversing biodiversity loss. We can only advance if we work together, public and private sector partners, for the sake of safeguarding the planet. We need visitors, businesses, local communities, local government, and national governments to be committed. But we need to put people at the center of nature-based solutions through new governance or business model for our sector to contribute effectively to reverse biodiversity loss and achieve a nature-positive world by 2030. And we invite you to join us all on that journey for nature-positive tourism and travel.
Thank you very much, Zaritza. And I would now like to introduce Glenn, CEO of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance.
Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you, Zaritza, both of you. It's indeed an honor to be on this stage with the two leading tourism organizations in the world. I represent a private sector-led charitable organization for the hospitality industry, advancing programs, guidance, and tools for responsible and regenerative future. And our belief is that every hotel around the world must move towards a net positive impact. Net zero is simply not enough. Net positive is a way of doing business which puts back more into society, the environment, and the global economy than we take out. That way that everyone and everything has a chance to prosper. Businesses, individuals, local communities, the environment, and nature. A bold vision, for sure, but the future of the tourism industry depends on protecting the locations, the livelihoods, the communities in which hotels, in our space, are based. Therefore, we must all, as a responsible business leader and leaders, be asking how can we create a prosperous and sustainable hospitality sector. As Zaritza pointed out, the tourism industry has an immense potential, when well managed, to be a force for good, as drawing on the COP13 notations. And over the past year, alongside our partners, we have been leading the industry to make net positive hospitality a reality. At COP26, we were a launch signatory of the UNWTO's Glasgow Declaration as an industry commitment to half the emissions over the next decade and to reach net zero emissions as soon as possible before 2050. We launched a pathway to net positive hospitality in March of this year, and this provides a strategic framework and a set of tools for every hotel to work towards a regenerative impact, whatever their starting point on their sustainability journey. And we're also proud today to stand with the WTTC here and commit to the nature positive tourism vision, to halt and reverse the decline of global biodiversity. We will use the position collectively as a global sustainability set of leaders to support and inspire business, to inspire governments, and to inspire society to help transform humanity's relationship with the natural world. Further to this aim, I am certainly delighted also to announce at this biodiversity conference that the Sustainable Markets Initiative that started in 2020 at the World Economic Forum in Davos have agreed to establish a task force for hospitality and tourism. The work of the Sustainable Markets Initiative centers around the Terra Carta, a framework launched by His Majesty King Charles III in his former role as Prince of Wales to put nature, people, and planet at the center of the economy. Its mission is to build a coordinated global effort to enable the private sector to accelerate the transition to a sustainable future, one that will harness the power of innovation and resources of the private sector. This new task force will bring leadership, the leading global CEOs of the hospitality sector and tourism to join forces with CEOs from finance, energy, technology, media, healthcare, construction, manufacturing, agriculture, and others to tackle issues and opportunities together. This collaborative effort that we see on the stage today is a real strong symbol of the need for all of the private sector globally to work together to tackle this issue that we have in front of us. And if we don't, we will not achieve what we all know what we're trying to achieve, and that's to save the planet. This offers our sector the opportunity to connect and learn from others first, while at the same time offer a platform to advance nature positive and net positive vision and approaches to the other sectors. Nature and biodiversity are at the core of the Sustainable Markets Initiative's Terra Carta, which recognizes the urgency of global climate, biodiversity, and health crisis. And this includes, of its aim, supporting the protection and restoration of a minimum of 30% of biodiversity on land and water, and by 2030, 50% by 2050. And for those that are in the audience that want to get a full package, we're very pleased to have Kelly Sapp, the Chief Industry Communications Officer, who can provide you more information. But overall, our collective vision and collaborative efforts announced today exemplifies our industry's commitment to having a positive impact and contribution to biodiversity of this planet. And I am certainly proud and honored to join the stage on behalf of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance with the World Travel and Tourism Council and the UNWTO to demonstrate this unprecedented way of this industry working together with its stakeholders and all its partners to transition society's relationship with nature and to help make nature positive a reality. And with that, we are certainly open for any questions that you may have.
Yes, please, any questions? Just if you would just say which organisation you're from, that would be really helpful. Thank you. And obviously we have Daniel to my right, who's from Animondial, and he can also talk about a little bit about the report if you want.
Hi, morning. Emanuele Bompana from La Repubblica, from Italy. Just asking what type of mention of tourism do you expect in the final document of the framework, of the global framework for biodiversity?
Sorry, what kind of...
What type of mention, what type of wording do we expect in the final text of the GBF?
Yeah.
I will try to answer that one because we're involved in the process. As I just mentioned, currently it's under discussion, under negotiation, so we cannot really precede what is going to be decided by mainly, as you know, the member states, because this is a very heavy process. What is very clear is that the sector is one of the sectors selected in the mainstreaming related to GBF's targets. Targets 7, 8, 9, 12, 14, 15, 16. I will not go into the detail, but definitely targets that are related to be able to support conservation and even more, as we are saying here, regeneration. If this is responding to your question.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, we can't obviously preempt as a representative of private sector.
No,
I couldn't
no.
assume to answer on behalf of the governments represented here today. Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, there's a lady there.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. My name is Elena Kreuzberg, and I'm from the Global Forest Coalition. And I just would like to ask you clarification of the terms nature positive and net positive in relation to tourism. I'm also involved in ecotourism activities, and I know that you always need to be very cautious because the impact from tourism can be disastrous. Thank you.
That's a very good question, and I'm sure other panel members, but Daniel's going to give an answer first. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you raise a very valid point about the term nature positive, and many will know that that is a term that's being debated as we speak. But I think it was really important in the report that we wrote with the World Travel and Tourism Council that we framed what we were talking about up front. So our term nature positive tourism, and we're using those three words, not just nature positive, is recognizing, like all industries, travel and tourism can have a negative impact on nature. We all can. Every single sector can. And I think it's part of that delivery is assessing the impact and, where possible, minimizing it, and where there are unavoidable impacts to seek an overall positive output. And that's really what nature positive tourism is about, is identifying those nature-based solutions within the destinations that travel and business operate in to deliver that overarching positive output.
And I would actually add, although I think it's a very good question about very clear definitions, and I welcome that, it can be a win-win. So if you look at the gorillas in Rwanda, where they have been protected as an endangered species, also the communities have been protected, and the money that comes from tourism goes back into those protection schemes. You know, another example is whaling. I mean, I know it's a debate when I was a young girl about, 2 years ago, but it was a really big issue. But now we know that a whale that is alive is actually worth more in terms of travel and tourism and visitors wanting to respectfully watch whales, as opposed to the value that the meat can bring in terms of the whale meat trade. And there are, lots of examples like that. Iberostar, it's a Spanish company, in doing incredible things in regrowing mangroves in Punta Cana, in Dominican Republic. Actually, Saudi Arabia doing incredible things in rewilding an area that's the size of Belgium, and reintroducing the Arabian leopard. So we can actually, travel and tourism can have a very, very beneficial point. So I don't know if anybody else would like to add.
And when we talk about net positive hospitality, and you've heard it in every element that has just been shared, we're talking about the planet, obviously, and the protection of the nature positive approach. But we're talking about people, and as Aritza talked about, the people centric, ensuring that human trafficking and modern slavery is stopped in all forms within the sector. We're also talking about the place in which we do business, and the respect that it's a privilege and not a right to do business in those areas, starting from that starting point. And ultimately, it is about prosperity. I represent an industry that is, private sector. There's obviously a need to make money, otherwise there is no sustainability of a sector. But that money should also be benefiting a much larger audience. So when we think about that, it's prosperity of the community, it's prosperity of the supply chain, and all those four elements may add up to net positive hospitality in its approach.
Sorry, Zaritza, should we move to another question, or did you want to make a point? Yes, please do.
Thank you. Just to add on that, when we speak about nature and biodiversity, we have to be very, very conscious that exactly what you said, Julia, the immense value added tourism can bring for conservation and preserving biodiversity. And then Glenn was just explaining on the processes and the operation of tourism operation. I think we have as well to factor the importance of looking at use of water, of energy, or processing waste, because these aspects are core to the tourism business. And when they are embedded in a process which is a sustainable consumption and production, which relates to the goal 12, then we can really move into the right direction. And actually, this is what SHA is doing. This is what the whole report is all about. It's integrating the model on conservation and the catalytic role of conservation, but as well on the sustainable use of resources, which is essential.
Okay, we've got like a minute and a half. This gentleman here has been waiting very patiently. We'll try and be really snappy. I'm not sure we're capable, but we'll have a go.
David Ligui, CFAC Radio from Sherbrooke. My question is 8% of greenhouse gas from the sector. So what is your target? What do you want to achieve? Because, most of about the plane, what is your goal?
Yeah, the most important thing is, we quite rightly said WTO measured this in a point in time. We've now measured it at another point in time, and we now together can actually monitor it. The very important thing, 8.1% greenhouse gases in scope 1, 2 and 3. The biggest thing that we can do that we need help from in the sector, sustainable aviation fuel. We don't control sustainable aviation fuel, but if we want to get to the Paris Agreement, we need the oil producers, we need to work with them, with governments, to produce more sustainable aviation fuel quickly, and we need renewables in the national grid, so that when our visitors are in any country here turning on the light, that energy that we use comes from a renewable. But the important thing now is that 8.1% is much lower. It's more like 4.6, but that's just been because of the pandemic, and our industry has to come back from that. So, but what we're seeing is a decoupling between the growth of our sector and the growth of the carbon and greenhouse gases that we are using. Now, other industries are seeing a decoupling, and we've got my press team here who can give you a bit more information. So we need to drive that decoupling down further. And for us, those are the two big action points where our sector on its own cannot do it without those two action points. People might say to me, electric planes, hydrogen, yeah, they're all coming, but they won't come in time. So they're great things to being developed, but sustainable aviation fuel and renewables is one of the two of the most important. I think we've run out of time. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Thank you.
I will now invite the next participant to come on the stage, please. J'inviterai maintenant les prochains participants à venir s'asseoir. Thank you. Merci.